All right, we have some breaking news to report. A new report from the Department of Justice calls the response to the Uvalde school shooting, quote, a failure. We want to get to CBS News' Lilia Luciano, who's actually in Uvalde. Lilia has been covering this story from the very, very beginning and has her hands on that report and has been looking through it over the last half hour. Lilia, what can you tell us from the report? What have you learned?
Vlad, as you can see, it's quite a long report. It's a report that right now concludes some of the things that we knew from the beginning, that there was a failure. As you said, the first line of conclusion, it says that, in summary, the response to the May 24th mass casualty incident at Robb Elementary School was a failure. We know that much. It also stresses that the first officers on scene, the first who responded, there were 11 in total. The officers who went into that hallway, 5 of them on one side, 6 of them on the other. As you might remember from the video, it says that when those first officers approached classroom 11 at 111 and 112, where the shots were coming out of, that they acted according to practice. But once they were grazed by bullets, once they retracted, everybody seems to have taken cover, and that was the critical moment where everything changed and the failures began. That is the moment when it starts to be treated as a barricaded subject or somebody who is contained as opposed to an active shooter situation. I've also learned that the Uvalde, the Uvalde police, the officers of whom Officer Peter Arredondo was the chief, that they didn't seem to have a policy for active shooters. It says UCISD-PD did not have an active shooter policy. However, UCISD did have an annex specifically related to incident command roles and responsibilities. What does this mean? It means that the people in leadership, including Peter Arredondo, should have known how to act as a leader. The other person that it points out is Mariano Pargas, who was the acting chief of Uvalde Police. It says, according to this report, that Pargas, first of all, I'm trying to find it here in my notes, that Pargas was in the best position to start taking command and control and start coordinating with approaching personnel. And it details the whole timeline of events and the whole of failure. The fact that officers who kept arriving were being told that the suspect was barricaded, that he was, at some point, some officers thought that Arredondo was in the classroom with the suspect. They assumed a long series of assumptions that no children were in the room. But what's striking about the report, and what we already knew, is that within just a handful of minutes, 911 was telling the officers that children were calling from inside the room, that the school was full of children and teachers. And so why was Pete Arredondo not only, not breaching the room, but also telling incoming officers, keeping them away from the room and prioritizing the evacuation of other classrooms and the arrival of negotiators, of shields, of tools to open the door, including keys, which I'm hoping to find out in the next few minutes, because we just got our hands into this report to know whether or not the door was open in the first place. All of these failures accumulated and led to this catastrophe. The goal of this report is to provide not only, to honor the victims, as the DOJ has said, but to provide law enforcement agencies from across the country and frankly around the world with a series of standards to follow and hopefully prevent something like this from happening again. But the biggest failures are no leadership, no communication, and remember that Arredondo had ditched his radios before he went into the school. The fact that the agencies had not trained together. And one thing that I haven't been able to find yet in the report, because I've just only started reading it, but one thing that really is striking is that the students did what they needed to do. The students follow protocol. The students stay quiet. But the officers make all of these assumptions about no one being in the room, about barricaded suspects, and not based on the fact that the students were quiet. So where is the training from police compared to the training from students? That's something that's striking. One thing that I did find in the report that was interesting is that apparently in the training of the UCISD police, there seemed to be errors, that they had the wrong policies, they had training deficiencies. One thing that that stood out to me was that in recent training to UCISD, an active shooter, they assumed, or they were trained to assume, that an active shooter situation could transition into a hostage situation. So that might be why those officers were saying barricaded, hostage, or, you know, contained, as opposed to active shooter, active shooter, active shooter. And what the active shooter policy in every agency demands is that you breach through and you stop him. Of course, why they hesitated is because one of the first things that you hear from officers, the first ones on the scene, is they know what kind of weapon the shooter has. They mentioned AR-15 or AR-15 style from the beginning. So here I'm just looking at a few other failures that stood out. On multiple occasions, Arredondo directed officers intending to gain entry to the classrooms to stop because he appeared to determine that other victims should first be removed from nearby classrooms. And we remember this from the body cam videos, that he was saying, no, you have to evacuate children in room 109, while rooms 111 and 112 were full of children closed in with the shooter. I haven't heard from the families yet because they are just getting their hands on the report as well. But of course, we're going to continue reporting from here. We have some interviews scheduled with the family members who we've been hearing from all along and who are demanding not just answers from this report, but action to hold those who are responsible accountable in one way or another. And remember, this is one of the investigations. There is the state investigation done by the Texas Rangers, and the goal of that investigation is to present the district attorney here in Uvalde with the evidence that she would then present a grand jury, and we'll see what kind of charges, if any, anybody could face from this. But this is not a criminal investigation. This is just something that is done at the federal level to provide those conclusions and then some training and materials and logic, really, for law enforcement agencies across the country. Mm-hmm. We'll see if this results in any kind of consequence at the district attorney level.
Lilia, before we let you go, and understanding that you're still going through this 80-page report, as you recall, and as you know, Texas Governor Greg Abbott...
509-page report.
Oh, sorry, 509,
I'll correct you there.
509
pages. If it was 80 pages,
You'd already have it done.
Info.
So here's my question. Yes. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, in the immediate aftermath of Uvalde, before things had even been wrapped up, you had Texas Governor Greg Abbott on television praising the actions of law enforcement, saying that they were courageous and praising their courage. Remind me, in the moment when you were reporting from Uvalde, did the governor have an explanation as to why he was making those assumptions so early in the wake of that horrific shooting? And does the report criticize his words and his actions in the immediate aftermath?
I haven't seen the name of the governor in this report yet. If we get a digital copy, I might control find it and have a more direct answer about that question. I do recall that he had said that that conclusion was based on the information that was relayed to him. One thing that stood out from this report, I'll tell you this, Vlad, is that the report makes a distinction between the officers that were inside the school and the leadership and the officers who were outside. We have been talking about 376 law enforcement officers from I don't know how many agencies, and they've all been criticized. But what this report lays out is that there was such a bad breakdown in communication. There was such a failure in leadership and in creating some kind of command to convey the critical information down the line that the officers outside of the school, and we've seen this in some of the videos, who wanted to act accordingly did not have the appropriate information to go in and stop the active shooter. They were under the understanding, and everything had slowed down, that this was a barricaded subject. What does that mean? No people are an immediate threat, an immediate danger, or it's a hostage situation. Some of the officers outside, according to this, actually believed, from what the investigators gathered in interviews, that Pete Arredondo was stuck in the room with the officer. And I do remember this from the body cam videos, that they said Arredondo has him contained. So imagine what a failure in the communication, that while Arredondo was pacing and prioritizing according to this, evacuating other classrooms and asking for keys, the people outside, the officers outside who were arriving, some of them were thinking that it was just him and the subject and the suspect inside a classroom, despite the 911 calls coming in. And remember, talking about communication, that Arredondo had said early on, and it lays it out here, that he had left his radio. He had a radio to communicate with the other school, the other responding officers from the school district, and the other radio with police. He didn't have them. He tried to call 911, as I recall from one of the videos, and communicated with 911. The question is, did he relay, and that's something that I'm hoping to find out, did he relay that there were children in the classroom calling 911, that somebody was hurt in the classroom, as he conveyed information to at least the officers that were in his proximity? I don't believe that is the case, but we'll see from the report. We will continue just going over it and then talking to the community, talking to the families, and seeing how they are digesting this. They want to see consequences. They want to see action. They want to see people being held responsible. Their district attorney has not disclosed any of the information from the Texas Rangers investigation that would lead her to present evidence to a grand jury. This is not for that, but this, I would imagine, puts some pressure, because it gives families answers that they can then present to their DA and say, hey, you said that a grand jury would review this in 2023. It is 2024. A grand jury has not reviewed it. The Department of Justice has put this out. When are we going to see the results of your investigation, and perhaps some accountability to come?
All right, Lilia, I mean, you really only got an opportunity to skim this, and I've heard so much right now about miscommunication, poor communication, that I'm sure is going to make people very, very angry. Yes, we knew that law enforcement dropped the ball, but now hearing the details, yeah, there are going to be a lot of people that are going to have to answer some tough questions. Lilia, thank you very much.